I'm from Saratoga Springs. I only know about this, thank goodness, for Carl Strzok. And,
Amen.
We really are appreciative, my brother and I. The question I have is, okay, we're aware of this, and I couldn't agree more with the lady that it's just so out of what we think about government is capable of, or our justice system is. But we know of this now because it's a local case. I can only imagine that there might be this kind of case in numbers of other situations around the country.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a bigger picture, and is there something going on a bigger scope?
The answer is yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a bigger picture. This kind of problem is happening all across the United States. And I have to say, I saw the movie The Enemy Within. How many people saw that movie? Anyway? All right. At some point, you'll remember in that they interviewed some of the FBI counterterrorist people. And in those interviews, it went by kind of fast, but if you get a chance to go back and go over it again, it is interesting. They describe in there the new paradigm in the Justice Department. And the new paradigm is prevention. We want to stop these acts from happening before they happen. And so one of them actually says the gathering of evidence is incidental. The mission is prevention. Wow. And yes, that was the actual quote. And I take it from that what they're really talking about is something that you might, and I'm using this phrase, this is my phrase, not theirs, of protective conviction. That is, trying to convict people of crimes before they occur. I believe that that's essentially what the Justice Department, in these particular cases, the counterterrorism, they're picking out people that they think might be a threat, and then they're trying to convict them of something, and that's what gives these cases this strange look about it. So I just throw that out. There are a whole bunch of these cases all over the country, and we're going to start to track them after the sentencing and see what we can do, see if we can't pull them all together and start to raise a question about them.
Steve? Those of us who remember the 60s and the 70s remember a thing called COINTELPRO. And one of the things in COINTELPRO was an FBI campaign essentially to disrupt, in that case, the peace movement. And a lot of it was to spread fear, to spread terror, to make people believe there was an FBI agent behind every door. And the larger picture here is that this is a scary thing, because what we see happening, what I see happening, is I see that there's a danger here that in order to spread fear, in order to build an agenda for certain types of foreign policy for the administration, the United States government wants to spread a certain fear here, to believe that there is a problem with terrorism, there is a threat, and to do this through having an FBI which is willing to once again do the kinds of abuses of constitutional rights, to do the kind of warrantless surveillance, to do the kind of like, well, would you like to come in and be interviewed? And the only thing we can do in response is we have to be real clear that there are constitutional rights, that we are going to fight to defend them. We are going to make sure that everybody who, you know, the extent to which people are brought in or asked questions, that there's, without reason, that they at least know their rights, that they know that if they're innocent, especially if they're innocent, but even if, you know, that they just have a right to a lawyer when the FBI comes, and just to try to do what we can to keep the thing honest, protect civil liberties, and just to stay on top of it, and to the extent that we see abuses like we've seen, to expose them. That's all we can do.
My name is Barbara DiTomaso. I'm the director of the Peace and Justice Commission for the Albany Catholic Diocese. Barry called me today and asked if he could mention, I was contacted by the FBI last week after our letter apparently was given to both sides of the case by the judge. And they wanted me and the other signers of our letter to come into the FBI building because he said they had information for us. And I thought, you're the guys who withheld the information of the trial. So I told him that he would be welcome to come to where I work with the information. And he said he had to get his superior's permission for that. So I don't know what the difference is between two buildings, except that one may have secret cameras and bugs all over the place. I haven't heard back from him yet. And I haven't been saying this publicly except to the other members of the Peace and Justice Commission because I wanted to give some time to see if he would agree to come in. But I think he called me last Wednesday and I haven't heard anything since. But I think this goes back to your point about trying to divide communities.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make a quick comment. This preventive jailing of people, of course, for old folks like me, we remember the case of Sacco and Vanzetti. Yeah, they were executed. Maybe they didn't do the crime they were charged with, but they were the type who might have. So they were executed. That was a famous case. And the other interesting book I've just finished is called The 1% Solution by Ram Suskind, a journalist. And the point was that there was a big high-level meeting with Vice President Cheney and the head of CIA and FBI, and described in this book. And in that meeting, he presented the 1% solution, meaning if we're going to protect this country from terrorism, if there's 1% of what we know is evidence that there might be a terrorist action, we must react. And I think that's probably, it's dawning on me, that's probably what's trickling down.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. If you look at the various information coming in and it suggests that there's even 1% chance that this might lead to something, you go after it. You convict.
Well, you can go after it and investigate.
That's
No,
true.
first you convict.
Oh.
Is that what the jury was thinking? That
Yeah, you can't be too careful.
that 1%? Is that what they're thinking?
I don't know. Well, I mean, and you wonder, yeah.
I don't think the jury.
Steve?
Yeah, but there's a
I'd like to
question.
ask one brief question from the other side. This is the choir here.
Okay.
And I'd like to ask a question I think a lot of people in the street might very well ask, in all innocence and sincerity, and it deserves an answer, which relates to what this lady said. Said, I believe in the Bill of Rights. I don't understand exactly what it's about, but I believe in it. But these are crimes which can involve thousands of us. And, you know, if that's the case, you know, should we really have to, what is the purpose of the Fourth and the Sixth Amendments to me in the face of this threat? If I give up some of my liberties so that I will be protected, even on the off chance of 1%, and some innocent people go, why is that a bad thing, and why is that a threat to me as an American citizen? That's an answer I think deserves an answer.
Well, I'm going to respond to that. The first question is that, you know, there's a presumption there, which I think I'd like to address. And the presumption is that if I somehow, by repealing the Bill of Rights and by allowing authoritarian restrictions, you're going to somehow have better law enforcement and more effective law enforcement. And I don't think that's true. You're not going, if the question is, if the implicit assumption is that by repealing the Bill of Rights, by saying, okay, we're going to let the cops go in, we're going to let them break in and break down the doors to see if somebody's there, we're going to let them wiretap, you're going to somehow limit the amount of terrorist actions. I don't think that, historically that's ever been true. If you look at any of the totalitarian or authoritarian systems that have existed in the 20th century, it was not a good way of protecting. The best protection, I would argue, against terrorism is, by all means, to have, if you need to have vigilance, if you need to have security cameras at airports, if you need to do things like just to make sure that you're going to protect certain, don't be naive about things, but in the sense of, but you're not going to necessarily be able to do it. And if you stop restricting, and if you don't allow people to have rights, if you say you don't, then all you're going to do is you're going to drive things farther underground, and you're going to make them, and you will not create any better protection. We have not done any better. We have not done any better with respect whenever we've tried to repress things. And the best protection, I would say, is, as I said, a society which respects the rights of individuals. That's the only way you're going to be able to, that's what a democratic society is, and democracy and sunshine and transparency is the best way of protection.
got a question back there. Go ahead. You still have time. I promised that we would end up by 8:30, so we have about 5 minutes left, yeah.
Well, I'm not a public speaker, and I'm a little nervous, but 9/11 was a very terrible thing. I had personal connections with it. My son spent 2 or 3 days on the pile helping the firemen with a flashlight, shooting it into holes, finding arms and legs, and nobody's speaking, come on, let's, like this. He helped with the bucket brigade.
God bless him.
I also read, we cried for weeks and weeks after this. I will never want to see it again. Now, one of the techniques of the terrorists is to bring in Muslims. I'm not criticizing Muslims, but to come in and live as an American for years, set up a good reputation, be a nice man, do all these good things, and then strike. How do we protect ourselves from these few people who come into our country that want to hurt us? I think we're not against Muslims or anybody, but how can we protect ourselves from these individuals?
Yeah.
Why did the jury find these people guilty? What little thing was it that the FBI came up and says, let's pick on these 2 men? There had to be something in their background. There had to be something for them to be picked. For prevention.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
It's a good question, and I'm glad that you raised this.
But I am fearful of
Yeah.
terrorists for our country.
Can I
and
just
our
say something?
children.
Let me just
And
respond to that by saying that I think, first of all, you have to understand that the Muslims in this community don't want terrorists either. They came to this country because they wanted to live a life that was free of violence. And that if you demonize the Muslim community and drive them away, you lose the most protection that you would have, because it is the Muslims themselves, the community, that will say, this person is a bad person, be careful of him. What we've done here is that by dividing up the community and
where
making
were the Muslims when these flyers got into the airplanes? Didn't they know that they were enemies of themselves even?
You need to let her finish.
I'm sorry, but
That's
this is a
Well,
very
I think
terrible situation.
I have to say, it is. I understand it's a very emotional situation
It
for you.
is.
And it is for all of us, because none of us ever want to see what happened at 9/11 again.
True.
I don't, and Shamshad doesn't, and none of the people in the Muslim community want to see that.
Where were they when these pilots were living in our country and studying? Didn't they have not Muslim friends?
All right, sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, and I think being probably the least legally educated person at this table, I'm going to try to say something to you that I have been able to put together in my own mind and heart. Before 9/11, we really weren't paying attention to what was going on, and there was a lot of anger toward the United States, and there were some things that were happening that maybe some people in our intelligence knew about and understood, but they couldn't exactly, for whatever reasons, get behind it and around it and know exactly when things were going to strike. Those were people that were very angry with the United States, who happened to be Muslim. Now, September 11th came, and these were Muslim people who were flying those airplanes, who had been put in our country in cells, however you want to put it, intentionally. I think that since 9/11, our government has been able to figure out how to identify the most demonized of these people before they even get into the country. The Muslim communities that are in the country now, for the most part, are Muslim communities who've been established for a while. They are not different from any of us, and we have to really, really understand that. It's very important, because if we stop understanding that and start isolating our Muslim neighbors, then we will have homegrown terrorists that we are building ourselves, because we're making these people feel like they are not wanted in this country. Why would we want to do that? We have to embrace our Muslim neighbors. We have to embrace the people who are part of our culture and part of our community, so that what happened on 9/11 does not happen again.
We had.
Excuse me, I just think it's 8:30 and we'll have to quit. I just want to give Shamshad the last word
I
on
want
this
to
one.
say something quickly too, that I'm not good with history, so like World War II maybe, when the Japanese had their problems, our country started like locking them up and treating every Japanese that they were all bad. And my mother said to me, you don't do that. We're older people in the new generation. Muhammad's my friend.
Well, I think whatever you are saying, that has been utilized by the present administration very, very powerfully and beautifully. And that's why we are seeing the problem with restricting liberty and having illegal wiretaps, violating many principles on which this country was built and this society prospered, or something. One should realize that because of the mistake of one person, you are not going to accuse others. Suppose my son has committed a murder. You are not coming to kill me and my wife and my son's brother or my son's sister, because I am the one who committed the murder and I should be tried and I should be punished or something. It doesn't matter how long it takes or what it takes. It will be very easy. That was the tribal rule. That one person of a particular tribe committed a crime, then you go and destroy the whole tribe, if you can. But we are civilized people, most advanced country on the earth, most educated, and its constitution is an icon. Its democracy is a model for everyone. It's a principal legal system, everything is there. FBI is very powerful, CIA is very powerful, and not mention to you that I committed the crime and then you go and grab my neighbor and punish him or something. There are 6 million Muslims in this country. Hundreds of thousands of institutions, mosques or something. Since 9/11, I challenge, give me one single case. One single terrorist has been caught and investigated. One real terrorist. You won't find. Wherever you find, it is a phony case. It is the so-called sting operation that stings from the very bottom or so. So a civilized society, an advanced society, a developed country, which should be the basis of our pursuit, and United States, fortunately, is the one. There are bad and good things in every country and every society, but the way this country developed and evolved, and its laws and other things, if implemented in its spirit, really, this is the greatness of this, and we should look for that, not the anger. That's what the Bush and Cheney administration had utilized. Exploit the people. Anyone who wants to talk reason, constitution, legality, accuse them helping the terrorists. You are helping the terrorists. That should not be the attitude, really. So there are 6 million Muslims. They are number one concerned that no terrorism should flourish in this country, because they are the ones who will be suffering. United States is a very big country, 300 million people. If a terrorist kills a dozen, it wouldn't make any difference. But a terrorist act that kills a dozen will destroy all 6 million Muslims here in this country, and perhaps many, many hundreds of millions overseas. So this is a very big concern and big responsibility to the Muslims themselves, really. And therefore, it should not be taken in the wrong context. CIA and FBI and Homeland Security, they have enormous resources, enormous budget. Please, you are welcome. Investigate and try to find the real terrorists and real program. Don't punish the innocent people. Thank you.